In this video, I'm going to be breaking down the top self-development podcasts that you can listen to today on Spotify or Apple. And I personally find that podcasts as well as audiobooks are a great way to kill two birds with one stone. What do I mean by that? What I mean is when I'm doing repetitive tasks like laundry or I'm traveling to a different location, sometimes you've got nothing to do, but you can just listen to some audiobooks. And I always find that I end up listening to self-development podcasts. The reason that I do this is because I'm quite fascinated with expanding your mind, thinking differently, listening to interviews with inspiring and successful people. And so like I said, in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the best self-development podcasts that I personally listen to on a frequent basis that have allowed me to grow and become a much happier and better person. The first podcast on this list is Motivate Yourself with Richard Nicholls. This is a podcast by Richard Nicholls, who is a British psychologist, and he goes very much in depth into the actual study and research of what makes us tick as humans, how we can unlock our mind to have clearer thoughts, be happier, embrace gratitude, appreciate the little things in life, and so much more. His podcast is very, very grounded in reality. He doesn't tend to leave you with these high concepts up in the air and that don't feel tangible. He likes to break it down for you into bite-sized chunks and allows you to just understand over short 20-minute episodes that he puts out. They're not these long hour and a half podcast episodes that many people do. He's very short and sweet, and he gets straight to the point, and he can give you so many golden nuggets that can really just unlock something in your mind. And I find it he's a very positive man, a very kind man. You can tell that through his voice. And with him being a psychologist, he knows how to deliver the messages that he wants to get across to you in such a simple and effective way compared to other people who do self-development podcasts or YouTube videos who shout at you and try and motivate you, and it comes off slightly, it rubs off on you in the wrong way and sometimes can actually leave you ignoring that message and resisting and pushing back. Whereas Richard, he doesn't do that. He really holds your hand and takes you through each episode to teach you something specific. I really love his podcast. The only downside I can really say about this podcast is the fact that he doesn't upload often. You'll get about one podcast a month, if that sometimes, and you kind of look forward to the next one. So every single time that you see that he's uploaded a new podcast, you're really excited and ready to go and listen to it. I believe that there are over 300 episodes already, and so if this is the first time hearing about his podcast, I recommend you check it out because you've got a lot to catch up on. Podcast number 2 is the Tim Ferriss Show. If you're into entrepreneurship, self-development, psychology, you definitely would have heard of Tim Ferriss. He's one of the longest running podcasters, and that's because he creates incredible podcasts with amazing guests, and he dives incredibly deep into the subjects that he has with these individuals. These are not all famous celebrities and successful people who he's interviewing. These can be very specific people who are very much so behind the scenes of much more successful people. And what he does is he speaks to these people and he breaks it down into actionable, small bite-sized pieces, but with a lot of depth. Tim Ferriss, when he interviews someone, these podcasts can be up to like 3 hours long, or they can be an hour long. But over that time, what you'll find is he will dramatically dig deep into what makes that person tick to find out the best tools, tactics, tips that have allowed them or someone that they've worked with to get to that next level, and he'll share it with you. Tim Ferriss is notably called the human guinea pig because he always tests these things on himself. He's done an amazing amount of things in his life. He's had a lot of experiences that give him a key insight. And in his podcast, he always goes into depth and provides that to you from his own experiences. I really recommend it. The format of his show, as well as the actual guests, are very similar to the Joe Rogan Experience. If you've ever heard that podcast, these are very, very similar. However, I would say Joe Rogan tends to lean more to the entertainment side with these guests when he's digging deep and peeling back the layers to their stories. Tim Ferriss is more on the educational side and about peeling back those layers to learn about their knowledge, what motivates them, their skills. And so they are very similar. I would say they are, two sides to the same coin. The third podcast that you're going to be able to listen to today to help you with self-development is the Project Life Mastery podcast. Now, this podcast is absolutely incredible because this is the guy you need to go to, Stefan James, if you want to master so many areas of your life. This can include your happiness, your well-being, the money, your career, your relationships, your mindset, and every area of your life. This is the guy that wants to be a master in all of them, and he's done a tremendous job in doing so. You can go ahead and look at his YouTube channel where he was several years ago and look at where he is now and the growth that he has had. It's incredible. And in his podcast, he goes through all of these topics, and they're quite long. They can last from 20 minutes up to an hour plus, all breaking down these things for you. He is all about making sure that you are the best version of yourself. Now, his podcast is not necessarily a podcast in the traditional way. It's much more of an audio rip of his actual YouTube videos. So I actually prefer to not so much listen to his podcast, but actually watch his videos because I'm much more of a visual person. I like to see someone when they're speaking, but it's handy to have his podcast episode at hand for the audio version. I really recommend that you check him out if you're into self-development. He's someone out of all of this list who I can say really goes deep and doesn't just talk about it, he proves that he actually does the things that he's recommending. The fourth podcast on this list is the Jarvis Show. Now, I absolutely love Chase. If you're into creative entrepreneurship or business or mindset, this is a great podcast that goes in depth into these areas with some amazing guests, including Richard Branson, Gary Vaynerchuk, Seth Godin, Damon John. The list just goes on and on. Very, very big people, titans of their industry. And it's very, very much a relaxed show where they're on like two sofas and they just chat. And these can be, an hour long again to an hour and a half. But the reason why this is so different is because Jarvis is such a nice, genuine guy. And he comes at it very calm and collective. And whilst he may be very motivated and driven, he's not intense and rah like many entrepreneurs are in podcasts and videos. I'm sure you know many of them who are all shouting and trying to like motivate you, and sometimes it can just put you off. It doesn't hit your soul in a way, whereas Chase is much more like you're just chilling with a friend, listening to them talk about these great topics, which is why I'm recommending that to you. He also is a podcaster that has a video form of his podcast on his YouTube channel, which you can also check out. Here is a fifth bonus podcast episode, and it's called Connecting the Dots. This podcast is all about documenting self-development and interviews with others about having a growth mindset, being happy, having gratitude, and really focusing on the very similar topics that the previous 4 podcast episodes have had. Connecting the Dots is a podcast by me. I had to kind of slip that one in there. But this is a podcast that I don't necessarily upload to anymore. This was something that I did last year. I've got about 4 or 5 podcast episodes up there where I interview some really, really great people. One of my favorite podcast episodes of that, which I recommend to you, is with Ronaldo Lawrence, which is an Adobe, Microsoft, and Apple education leader. And he just talks so much with so much positivity about how we can change and influence our lives through education, self-education specifically. And I really recommend that out if you want to check it out. There is a link in the description below. And if you kind of like those podcasts and I get some positive feedback, maybe I'll go back and start to make podcast episodes there again. If you enjoyed this video and you like self-development, which you clearly do if you've got this far in the video, make sure you check out all of the other videos on this YouTube channel. So if that interests you, in any way, please click some of these videos here on either side of me and check out the YouTube channel. Be sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you did like it. Have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next one.